Hey guys, Sean here, and welcome to the F1 Word Live, where we're going to be doing our usual Sunday debate. I'm going to be joined by John T and one other in just a few minutes' time. But first off, let's get the housekeeping out of the way. Follow me on social media. Links are all in the description. You can support the stream as well through Stream. Every week I forget that. Streamlabs, it's that easy. You can also check out the Patreon page as well if you want to support the stream a little bit more long term, shall we say. Today's debate is all about Liberty Media. It's been a week pretty much dominated by Liberty Media on the channel and around F1, of course. So I thought, let's wrap it up. Let's go over it all, take a bit of time, just chill over it, and just, maybe use my brain for once. But, well, that's why I've got John T, is the brain, to be honest. But, yeah, it's been a tough week for Liberty, I think, and a tough week for F1. So I'm basically asking, is this beginning to look like the end for F1, or is it a bright new future? I've seen one comment that said it's the end of a chapter and the beginning of a new one, I think is what one said. And that kind of, yeah, I could kind of go with that one. Let's start off, as we always do, by bringing in John T. Good evening, John T.
Good evening, everyone.
Oh, it's all working first time. I don't like this. I'm a bit nervous now. Something's got to go wrong. Yeah, rough week for Liberty in terms of fan criticism, I'd say.
Yeah, they don't seem to have made many friends.
No, it's an odd one. I don't know. We'll get into it in a minute. And I'm going to be joined by a third person this week. Mr. Littlemore's back. Hello, Ryan.
Hello, how are you doing?
I'm all right, thank you. Are you?
Yes, not too bad. I've been a very busy few weeks speaking to John T about it, but yeah, it's been a very busy couple of weeks for me. But I am glad to be back with you lot and have a nice chat about F1. Great place to be on a Sunday night.
a productive time and a great finish to the week. There you go. What do you make of Liberty this week? It's been a bit of a rough ride for him, hasn't it, really?
Yes, it's been interesting. It's been interesting developments. I've got a lot of things to say.
Good.
We will discuss. But yes, it's been very interesting.
Yeah, I think I'm gonna kick off with this one because obviously back in 2017 they took over. A lot of hype around them. A lot of people felt like this was it for F1, moving into a new era, hitting a new generation, 21st century finally. And it kind of started that way. They've always said the right things, but once again, as I've moaned about all week to people and on videos as well, they just seem to be focusing on the little things rather than dealing with the real issues. Let's start with the big one, I guess, or not the biggest of the week, but one of the big ones, and that's session start times moving. They've been pushed back. A lot of people seem to think by just 10 minutes. That's not true. They've been pushed back to 10 minutes past the hour and a total of 70 minutes, which makes no odds to me. I get it whatever time the race are on, to be honest. But it's a bit of an odd one, John T. I can understand why they're doing it, but it seems to be appealing to one audience and one audience only.
Yeah, which, I mean, you could understand from Liberty's point of view, but why the 10 minutes? I mean, I know that it's more than that in a lot of cases, but there's so many where it's starting at 10 past. It makes very, very little sense.
It's weird. I mean, that to me, I watch some US TV and US sports online in various places. I'm not going to name them. But they just seem to load everything with adverts. And it just feels like another 10 minutes to fill with adverts. It just, I don't know. Yeah. I can't get my head around it.
Yeah, that's what I was concerned about. If it's going to go the Super Bowl direction where you've got, 2 hours of sport that takes 5 hours to watch.
Yeah, basically, yeah. It seems to have hit the Asian market as well. I mean, I don't think those race times have moved at all, Ryan, actually looking at it. It's all the European races moving, but moving the French Grand Prix for the World Cup, do we need to do that for F1, really?
Oh, well, to add to John T's opinions on it, it doesn't make a difference for me as well, because I get up and watch whatever time it is, but I know why they kind of done it, because they want to express to the American public a bit more, because, a bit later in the day, people don't have to get up as early. They want to try and hit America like as a big prime time location. It's a big, loads of people watch sport over there, like football, all of a series, motorsport series, ones with open wheelers going around in circles, which we won't mention. But in terms of the French Grand Prix, I didn't even know that they actually decided to change that because of the World Cup. But I can see why, in a perspective, because lots of people would watch the World Cup. F1's not as big as like the World Cup in a way, so I can understand why they did that, but I don't really care. The French Grand Prix back, so it doesn't bother me. So,
I mean, it's important they tap into that American market. I mean, if they can really harness that, which Bernie never did, then the audience is going to be huge. But they need to remember, and I'm saying this as a Brit, I know, and European and all that, but they need to make sure they're not alienating their core fan base as well. That's key.
Yeah, it is. As I said, to grow F1. It's a good call to get try and get more Americans involved. Obviously, they want to try and get more races over there. Like I've heard, Long Beach has been mentioned, Miami. Trying to make. I heard a little sneaky rumor that they were trying to rebirth the New Jersey race. If you remember, that was mentioned a few years ago. They want to bring that back, which is interesting. But yeah, they've got to be very, very careful. They don't want to make it too American, if that makes any sense. Like, like adverts coming up of like, oh, great offer at McDonald's, buy a big Zinger Tower meal for £2 or something, or getting all the car insurance adverts and all that malarkey. So they need to be cautious with the approach they're going with.
Yeah, we don't want Sebastian Vettel's pole lap sponsored by Subway, do we? We don't want anything stupid like that. But I don't know, on new circuits, I mean, I'll try not to wind up too much with it, Jonty, but the problem is all the ones that they're sort of putting forward seem to be street tracks, and I don't want street tracks, really.
No, I can understand them wanting to get a second race in the US, and it's completely unnecessary to go with street circuits. Well, there's so many amazing tracks there.
I would like to come in. It's not yes, it is mostly street tracks they're going for. Like Copenhagen is obviously one that's been mentioned for a new track. Obviously, the American ones are mentioned, but obviously with the Dutch Grand Prix, the Zandvoort, Assen has been mentioned heavily. It's been strongly rumored. Herbert Tike's been there apparently last couple of weeks ago. Took of that track, so they want to bring like some actual current tracks on there, but the majority of where they want to go is, of course, street circuits, and it doesn't make it like an F1 race. It feels they're just doing a second copy of Formula E, and obviously, Formula E's got their own thing, which is great. Street circuits in like cities, and that's a great idea. F1 doesn't want to go down that path. They've got to try and keep it as historic as possible on open tracks, and just keep the heritage there. We don't want it to go like a Formula E version of the championship, which is not why I personally don't want it to go. But you never know.
No, I'd agree with that. I think obviously like the street circuit, Singapore, the backdrop, we said it last week, absolutely stunning. We can't argue with that, but it just doesn't make for great racing. The circuits are far too tight. But one topic I guess we kind of have to come on to again for probably the third time this week. I don't know if you've heard about it, guys, but they've axed grid girls this week.
Oh my God, the Twitter has been blowing up about this, and I've kept myself off this topic because I'm basically in the middle with this one.
Yeah.
I can understand why, but from reading a few people that do that job, I can understand why they do it, and I feel sorry for them in a way. But it literally, I know you knew about this, with Twitter blowing up and whatnot. So I can understand they want to, because I can't remember what race it was, but obviously instead of grid girls, they had grid dogs or something. Or Formula E have kids like kids on the grid, and I think that's a good idea going forward. But there's just all hot chicks, you know. They want to try and bring people in, like, oh, look at this hottie on the grid, you know. Let's watch this for a little bit. So I can see why they've got rid of it, but it's people's jobs, you know. They've lost like they have to go to feeder series or whatnot, or wherever they have grid girls. But so yeah, I'm basically split in the middle, if I'm honest with you. But I don't want to cause beef in the chat or on Twitter. You know, we've already had that this week, so I'm just gonna split it in the middle on that. But sorry. But the whole, if they bring in like, you know, like charity stuff, like, you know, have kids in like Make-A-Wish or something like that, or just normal kids in general, like Formula E doing, it's worked well for them. Or like, I think it was Australia, they had the guide dogs in or something. I can't remember what track it was, but I think they should just bring in like different charity, like groups of people from a charity or something, and just have them on the grid or something like that. Just gets them out there, and that's my proposal for Liberty. But I don't know what like Jonty thinks.
I'm pretty much down the middle on it. I know Jonty put a question which pretty much, although I'm down the middle, not a question, a point in the comments on the video actually kind of sums up how I feel about it. And that was pretty much, I'll let him explain it himself, but it was basically their choice, their bodies. It's up to them. I mean, what do you think, Jonty, to it all? It's all got a little bit silly, hasn't it now?
Yeah, it's got very silly. But my point on it was, at the end of the day, the only people who are losing out are them themselves. Literally no one else loses anything from it other than them losing their jobs.
Yeah.
So there's absolutely no fairness to that at all. I can obviously understand both sides of it. And as Ryan said, Twitter really did blow up. And the amount of girls themselves tweeting about it saying, thanks a lot. What am I going to do Monday morning?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, that's it. They're part of modelling agencies. They decide that's the career path they want to go on. So ultimately, for me, I get the 21st century ideals. I understand what Liberty is saying. But at the same time, why didn't they just sit all the grid girls down and say, are you happy? And if one turns around and says, I feel a bit objectified, for example, then fine, get rid, because obviously there's a problem. But if they all say, no, we're happy, which the majority, or certainly the ones I've seen on social media have, then I don't really see the issue. But I guess the question really to put forward is this the big deal we're making it out to be, or is it a big deal because we've got basically nothing else to talk about until we get to car launches and testing?
Well, it's still got that feeling of Liberty need to be seen to be doing something. And it's something very, very easy that they can just do in a 10-minute meeting and say, right, yeah, let's get rid of that and let's do this. Same with the changing of race start time, to be honest. It's a very public thing they can be seen to be doing whilst they're trying to fix the underlying bigger problems.
Yeah. Ryan, anything you want to...
I just want to say something in the chat. Someone's mentioned it. I think it's a really good idea. Nation put it in, and let's get the people who are there actually watching it. So there could be like a competition or something. If you win, you can be on the grid and you can be the person on there. It's great interaction. Obviously, they want to go down the whole social media path. If anyone's at the track and they tweet it or something like and they get picked, they can come onto the grid, and I think that's the direction they should go in a way. Personally, interact with the fans more and get them on there, so like they get some really good access. It's like being on and someone's put grid giraffes, which is actually quite a good idea. I like that idea, Cooper.
Oh, don't get me started on grid giraffes. That's all they were talking about the other night in chat on Discord. It was like, what? They were even helicoptering them in. But yeah, I said in the video, actually, a competition, you pick 20 for each event. They all enter, 20 winners, get to stand by the cars, meet the drivers. It's a great way to engage fans. And if that's the route Liberty want to go down anyway, it kind of ticks that box and makes perfect sense for me. So I think it's a great way as well. You're getting men, women and children involved in it then. So that's not really, I think that's a good thing. Obviously, going back a little bit, they changed the logo, which I think a lot of us forgotten about because of everything else they're changing. But Jonty sort of hit on the point there that I was going to make, and that is that it just doesn't feel like they're addressing the right issues. I mean, in their defence, I guess there's not really a lot they can do till 2021 anyway. But these just don't feel like big things that needed sorting when you watch races like Abu Dhabi and you wake up halfway through and nothing's changed. And it just felt like launching the logo then was to get rid of that snooze fest because they kind of knew it was going to be a dual race, nothing on the line, and then nothing really happening in the win. It just doesn't feel like they're addressing the right issues to me, but I guess, they are changes they want to make. So, yeah, it's their sport. At the end of the day, we'll keep watching because we're daft like that, I think, is probably the best way to put it.
Yeah, it has grown on me a bit, but like we said before, it's just so they can be seen to be doing something. I mean, The logo is quite obviously trying to put their own stamp on it, and it is very much a more modern logo, shall we say.
It freshens it up a bit, and it stops Bernie having any claim to certain things, doesn't it, as well? So that's going to help them out massively. Just having a look at chat to see if there's anybody making any points or anything about grid girls. Grid grandmas says Black Emergency. Yeah, it's an option. But yeah, I think a lot of people looking through chat and through comments, it is quite divided, but most people seem to understand why they've done it, even if they don't like it. So, but we'll move on from grid girls and logos because we could go on forever about it. Now, it wasn't a Liberty Media call, of course, but the halo will be on the car. Yeah, that thing from the Australian Grand Prix onwards. We're going to get our first glimpse on the 15th of February on that, Williams. So only a couple of weeks till we get to see whether or not it does look any better. How badly is... I'm going to come to you, Ryan, because we talk about this all the time, but how badly is this going to hit the sport, do you think?
I'm not really entirely sure. You know, I could obviously, as I think I've spoke to you about this, I understand why they've done it for safety reasons. We get that. I've seen pictures recently of the F2 cars. George Russell is a prime example with the halo, and it actually doesn't look that bad of how they've done it, like design-wise. They've got to get the design absolutely spot on with this to make it. Obviously, we know it's ugly. We can understand that it's going to be horrendous, but they've got to try and make it more stand out. But I'll tell you an example of a halo that I really like, the Formula E that was released this week.
Yeah,
that is probably the best looking halo I've ever seen of any car that I've seen with the concept on it. And I think F1 has to go down that sort of route, and maybe they are, because obviously for all Formula E is with the FIA, so maybe that could be what the cars look like with the halo on it, potentially. Maybe flap a load of sponsors on it. We know there's gonna be a camera on there apparently, from what I've heard, and some data on it or whatnot. From what I've heard from McLaren, where Zach Brown was talking about something about the plans are going all out or something, but if they have it like the Formula E halo, I will not have a problem with it.
It looks great, doesn't it? That car full stop looks amazing.
But sorry, this week as well, you know the shield system they had before Vettel moaned about it. IndyCar are trying that out this week, from what I've heard from Joseph Newgarden's testing it, I believe, and it actually looks really all right. It looks okay. I would have personally preferred the arrow screen, but obviously IndyCar is a bit different to F1. They're only turning left. About 90% of the time they're turning left. But it'll be nice to see, though. But I am a bit concerned about the whole T-cam, you know, like for the next F1 game. But obviously, we won't be talking about that. But in terms of real life, though, in terms of real life onboard cameras, it's going to look a bit weird. Maybe they'll put it on the halo, like on the top part of it, or...
Oh, God, don't give them ideas, Ryan, no.
But there may be one where they may like have a camera like pointing towards the driver or something like that, so you get like a feel of what a driver's like, head movements, you know, see the G-force they experience through a corner. Maybe like in night races, you can see a real good close-up of like Alonso or something, like focusing, looking at the apex of a corner. You got all these ideas, and maybe like they've got an IndyCar with the LED system where they have like a position on. So if you're in the crowd and you have no idea where Alonso is, if it could be like a nice little light on saying P1 or something, or P2, and then when they're in the pits, they could have it like green and tell you how many seconds there are, like they have in the Daytona 24 last week as well. All these little bits they can add on the car, and it would be a really good idea if they implemented the halo with these bits on. But overall, safety-wise, they had to do it.
Absolutely, and I have to say, I don't know about you, Jonty, but the more I see of it on cars, like the Formula E car, the F2 car, even looking back at old pictures like that, the more I'm kind of getting used to it.
Yeah, it's the more I'm just not paying attention to it, I think.
Yeah.
And like you both just said, the Formula E car looks absolutely amazing. It really does. And even the Formula 2 car, it's been incorporated just a bit more into the shape of the car. I mean, the picture you've got up of the test one on the Ferrari, it's quite rounded, it's fairly bulky. You know, it's not a final design.
No.
But the way it's been done now, it does look kind of cool. And with having the LEDs on, certainly on the Formula E car, I originally thought it was a terrible idea. And then they did the little trailer with the little red light going like kit around it. And who can't like that?
Exactly. I mean, obviously, I will very quickly talk about the FE car. We talked about it in midweek. F1's never going to, well, it might go down that route long term. It's not going to do it in the short term because there's just too much history there. I think it'll upset people, but it does look amazing. And if F1 can just take a couple of ideas from that, that would be awesome. I just want to say as well, thank you, James Armand, for the contribution there. Really appreciate it, mate. Thank you for that. Let's move on from Halo because I think we've talked about it once or twice on the channel. So, yeah, we'll move on to that. On to positives, though, and that is that social media is up for Liberty Media. F1, the fastest growing sports brand on social media. As I said, though, in my video on Tuesday, if you take a brand that had very little social media impact, if you like, to having some, then obviously it's going to seem like a big grow. But that's a big positive, Jonty, isn't it? It seems to be engaging a younger audience now.
Yeah, very much so. If you follow all the interaction that there is on Twitter, their own YouTube channel and Facebook, there's a lot more interaction on there now. I mean, there wasn't very much from from Formula One itself, and that's stepped up. So obviously people are replying back, and they actually respond to things. That's the big difference. I mean, there's a lot of companies, people around sport who have their official Twitters and their official Facebooks, and all they do is just post stuff up, and that's it. They never actually interact.
No.
That's what's been changing the most. And that's definitely a big step forward. Certainly for us.
Yeah, it's a much needed step as well. And they've kind of lifted that restriction as well of testing. I just want to clarify very quickly. Rayson's just pointed something out to me in the chat that I meant to say. This is a video about, obviously, whether F1's on the road to just sort of petering out or whatever as a sport, or whether it is a bright future. Great point. The Halo was already called before Liberty were involved in the sport. It was nothing to do with Liberty. That was 100% F1 and the FIA, just to clarify that. So this isn't a Liberty Media bashing video, but obviously they own the sport, so they're going to get a little bit of grief, but the Halo, nothing to do with them. Back to social media, though, it's a big step, isn't it, Ryan, in the right direction?
It is, and it's great to see they're getting interactive with us, which is finally something that we want. They're more active on YouTube than I have ever been, I will say, with their content. And yeah, I mean, the teams are getting involved as well, you know, interacting more. And like some of the drivers as well, like Charles Leclerc, we've been chatting, you know, off air in DMs, you know. And
yeah, follows you on social media, doesn't he? So
yeah, Red Bull follow me as well on social media. But that's what's great about now. Like, I think there's been like an embargo's like been lifted or something, so that the teams and drivers could be a little more interactive with their fans. And Alonso's an example now. Like he's constantly tweeting, like he's got his own esports team, you know, and esports is a big thing, and he's took that route, engaging audiences, and he's been constantly on about obviously the Mon as well, which is good. So I like it now personally. The drivers are getting more close up with the fans, not as much, but they're getting there. They're getting there slowly, which is great, and that's what you need. You don't really see football teams do that, or players, or rugby, or NASCAR do it a little bit, and also IndyCar from what I've seen and spoke to a few people about. It's definitely going in the right direction personally, and it just can grow from there.
Yeah, and if they can get that now to the circuits and get fans a little bit closer to the drivers as well. I know nowadays security is a concern and whatnot, but you know, there are ways to do it, because that's definitely lacking from circuits. You watch old footage and you've got people just walking up to drivers and getting autographs and that, and you can do it, but it's not as easy now. But obviously the world we live in kind of dictates that, I guess. But if they can just do that, that would be great, I think. And it's just I want to meet more drivers. I think that's essentially what I'm moaning out there.
Yep.
Obviously, 2021 is when Liberty are going to be able to put their big stamp on the sport. Engine changes don't sound particularly exciting, but if they can make them louder, quicker, and a bit less complicated and therefore cheaper, that's got to be a move in the right direction again, Jonty.
Yeah, everyone still complains about the noise, and it's right. It's a motorsport after all. You expect it to be loud. You expect it to be a huge, visceral experience. And the way it is at the moment, the GP3 cars are louder.
Yeah.
Which is a bit crazy. As a quicker, I don't think that's strictly necessary, because we want the racing as opposed to the speed. Obviously, they're going to be fast. They're always going to be fast. but we need them to be closer together. They need to. I don't know. We've had this. We've talked about this so much before. I keep forgetting all the suggestions we made. They just need to tighten up what the teams can do to bring them closer together. Just little things, I think, as opposed to big things. They're never going to go back to the V8s and the V10s as much as we want them to. But just less of the hybrid, more of the petrol.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I mean, do we, or as a sport, Ryan, do you think F1 needs to leave all this road relevance to Formula E and just go back to being a spectacle, or has it still got a part to play in road relevance?
I can kind of see where they want to go. They want to be environmentally friendly. They brought the hybrid engines in, which I've got no problem with because I've got used to the sound now, being there twice and hearing them. So it's not. I don't think the sound's a big problem. I think most of us have got used to it now.
The other thing as well, actually, just picking up on what you said there, Ryan. On TV, they don't sound loud. When you're there in person, they're not exactly quiet, are they?
No. But they've tried out a few things like on TV broadcast. I think Perez did something in Brazil with they had some like pitch increase or something that they put something in the back of the car of where the exhaust comes out, and they did something there just to boost a little bit. I think they're doing it this season. I think as a trial, but I think in Australia, I could be wrong on this. I've only got little sources from the internet, but they did something in Brazil with Perez, and it worked. But I think it was it was a little bit louder for the viewers that aren't there to watch it. But I know why they've done all this now. They want to be renewable, and I quite like them. They're rapid. They're bloody rapid hybrids. I've experienced hybrids with the WEC bringing them in originally, and they were bloody rapid. And obviously now the cars are more elegant. Obviously makes them faster, which is what they need to be. Not it's not all about the engine and about how powerful it is or loud it is. It's how quickly they go around a track, and that's what racing is. You got to be the fastest team, the fastest car, and they look pretty now. Obviously, they've made some big changes. Obviously, with no shark fin on the back, still be some T-wings around from what I've heard. Like little midget ones on the back that Williams did as well. So I don't think it's really the engines and all that. I just feel it's more than that personally. And
yeah.
Recently, I don't know if anyone's seen the IndyCar that's plopped up anywhere, but that's the sort of they're loud. I think they're not V8s, or I don't know if they are. I think they're still V6s. I can't remember off the top of my head, but they look pretty. I mean, someone mentioned it in the chat. I can't remember who it was now because the chat's blowing up. But someone did mention about the IndyCar, and I think that's the approach F1 should have gone in terms of their looks. And they're bloody loud, those cars, and a lot louder than the F1 cars of today. So they need to go down the Indy route, I think, personally. I mean, looks and engine.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I guess picking up on it, obviously we want them to be fast and close, but I think we'd all take the cars 2 seconds a lap slower, but racing closer, wouldn't we, John T, if we're being honest?
Yeah. I mean, I think I might have to agree with Ryan that the IndyCar route's not a bad idea, because they do look amazing. They are very loud, and they're much closer to each other. So that kind of covers all the bases. It's just a case of, do we go to... They're just going to... We know what the FIA and people are like, and they will get an idea in their head and then take it too far.
Yeah.
To be fair as well, John T, there's not really much regulations in IndyCar. That's why they're all close. Like,
true.
They all get like specific like requirements. You got to be this. You have this bit. They all look the same basically, but there's just little things they can do as on like the setups or whatnot to try and go a little bit quicker. That's why you see all of them really practically identical in terms of looks, and the only thing really different is what the liveries and whatnot, and the engine inside that car. Because there's only two chassis, two big ones there, Chevrolet and Honda, and obviously now Carlin's coming in now for their first season with Max Chilton, which would be interesting to see how they do. But that it's more easy, like for us to understand the regulations in terms of IndyCar because it's all the same. They all look the same. Like GP2 is another, or F2. I shouldn't say GP2. F2 now is the same regulations. It's just all different teams, but they can change little bits, but not everything is a big change. and it'll be nice for us to get an understanding of the rules more, and like how, like, why can't they do this bit, or why have they got this bit on the car? What does it do? Is it like, it'll be nice for us as fans to understand what each rule is, so we can get a feel and be like, that's why the Mercedes is 2 seconds up the road, whatnot. So.
Yeah.
But they won't, because they want to be so obviously secretive, which I can understand why if they want to be successful. But it would be nice if they like lifted a little bit of the rules a tiny bit, and so they can do this sort of thing. That's why we see some innovations over the years. Like, I'm trying to think of an example of a big innovation. Like Mercedes did the whole DRS thing in China, if I remember, like double DRS. I think
the double
was.
DRS, yeah.
That was a good innovative idea. Red Bull have done a few things this year. With some 2017 they did a few innovations, and some of them have been lifted, like banned or whatnot. So they need to like rip out the rule book on some areas and let them do whatever they want. And if it works, that's great. If it doesn't, then it doesn't. And teams can follow that route and try and keep it as but I would love to see it more equal in a way, in some aspects, like the engines to be the same. But obviously I don't want DRS again. So I know Christian mentioned I'm not saying I want it back, but it's just I'm just giving an example of innovation. It'll be nice to see some teams doing some innovative ideas with, like, maybe the front end plate of a car, or the side of the car, or even the diffuser, something like that. And it will make things more easier. And someone's clearly put in the chat there, more equality means awesome racing. And I totally agree with that statement.
It does, 100%. I mean, I don't know about equal engines, because Ferrari are never going to be keen on that, and Mercedes won't. But what I would say is there are plenty of parts on that car that will be standardised that make no difference to us whatsoever. They could make that brings the price down. That's going to give teams like Force India a bigger budget, so they're going to be closer. But yeah, it needs to be closer than it is, because we've seen recent years your top three teams are 30 seconds clear halfway through the race minimum. That's not close enough. It needs to be a lot closer. I mean, the midfield's great, and if you get rid of the front three teams, I'm not suggesting that's a solution, but if you did, you've actually got great racing in the midfield. So maybe some examples there. Any ideas for closing up the field, Jonty, and cutting those costs?
Yeah, I mean, Ryan's quite right with the innovation. We need to have innovation. I think perhaps if the areas where they could innovate were less impactful, but they were given more freedom, if that makes any sense. Like the actual elements of the front wing, the elements they've got around the side pods, make the area that they can play with a bit less, but also give them complete freedom. Like that on front wing, we've got 19, 20 different elements of it. Just have a set area and say, right, you can have up to 5 elements, but with those elements you can do whatever the hell you want. Really let them go to town.
Yeah. Just a bit more freedom in the regulation.
Yeah. I mean, even that is still quite strict, because you've got the central section where it has to be completely aero neutral. That's not innovating anything. No one can do anything with that, and it doesn't affect safety at all. It's just done for seemingly no apparent reason. They can use that area to really control the air under the car and really get crazy downforce and speed from it. Just let them.
Yeah, we do miss that, don't we? Ryan's right. People trying things out, but I think part of that, teams kind of invest a lot of money and they know that it's likely to get banned, so I guess that maybe puts them off a bit and the restrictions are there. But I probably say it every week, but as much as I hated things like the winglets and that Arrows front wing on the nose and things, I hate them, but I love the fact that they tried it. Even though they got banned and they looked awful, at least they're trying things and they're allowed to try things, and it does make a difference.
Yeah, there was a good spectator element of seeing a team come out with a new innovation on the car, and all of us watching, sitting there going, "What the hell is that?"
Yeah, exactly.
And then either being not surprised when it falls off and causes chaos, or being pleasantly amazed when it suddenly performs like no one expected.
Yeah. And then gets banned because it upsets somebody else because they can't rise to the... That actually reminds me, going back to 98, I think it was 98. McLaren turned up with a fancy third brake pedal or a third clutch or something, a third pedal on the floor, which gave them a little bit of extra traction through the corners. And Ron Dennis getting stroppy because it got banned because Ferrari complained instead of, I think he said, rising to the technical challenge. They're the days I miss. Proper team arguing, not like they do now. I'm back to the old man thing.
Yeah, I remember that. It was like a split brake pedal, so you could brake left and right slightly different.
Yeah. We're being old again, Jonty. We need to stop this. It's not good.
There's nothing wrong with
that. So, I guess the question I'm coming to is, has F1 got a bright future, or is this the beginning of it? A lot of people, actually, in comments to videos just lately saying that F1's dead. It's going to die. It's the end of it. But I don't feel that way. I don't know about you two. I really don't feel that.
No, I don't. I think it's a gamble on their end that they're taking massive risks and taking the approaches they're going with. I don't see it's going to die, personally. The regulations in 2020, I think, was it 2021? Yeah, was it that or 2020?
Yeah, 2021.
Yeah, I think that is going to be a big moment, I think, for F1, where we could see maybe the gaps decrease massively on there. And I've heard rumors that they'll make the cars even more like futuristic, like we've seen with Formula E this past week. They may go down that route. They want to try and make it more futuristic, and it will bring more people in. They'll be like, "Wow, this car looks epic!" Like Formula E, I feel is going to blow up in the next season with the new look of the car. In my opinion, yes, new tracks as well, new countries, going to be bringing new audiences in. Like Copenhagen is an example. I've heard what's the track? Hanoi, I think Hanoi City in where is it? Vietnam. Vietnam's been mentioned recently in the news as well.
Yeah.
Great place to do an F1 race, I think. Oh, the scenes if they did in Macau, that would be great if they did that, but I doubt it.
It'd be chaos, absolute chaos, but it would be awesome.
The French Grand Prix as well coming back this year. Love the French Grand Prix. Yes, it's not a manicure, which I would have really liked because it's one of my favourite ever tracks ever. But still, Paul Ricard's a good track, good for testing on. So that may bring some good racing. I'm trying to think. Engine regs, I've already mentioned. Obviously, new things, and the whole social media thing, getting more of us involved and more content being released and seeing. Like when they did the Malaysian Grand Prix, yes, it was the last year, but they brought out a full race on for us to watch. I think it was the 2001 Grand Prix. I think it was, and that is something that they're doing right. And this is the right way that they should have done 10 years ago. I was
going to say they've left it too late, haven't they? But at least they're acting now. But Tony the guitarist has just said something which I'm going to come to you with as well, Jonty, and you can have your say on that last one as well. But he summed this up perfectly. People should stop overreacting because they are going to watch it either way. That's it. They could do what they want to this sport, and I will still get up at 6 o'clock in the morning, 4 o'clock in the morning to watch the races. So is it overreaction?
Yeah. I mean, I've said it many times in the past when things have changed and things have happened. Like, oh, it's getting boring. I'm not going to be watching it this year. And since 1986, I've missed 3 races live.
Wow.
So
that's impressive.
Yeah, I would be very hypocritical to say that I'm not going to watch it because of the changes. And I think that stands for a lot of fans. Most of the fans, to be honest.
So do you feel it's got a brighter future, or do you think it will die away?
I think there's a big risk. But Liberty seem to have the passion for it, so that if things do go wrong this next year or two, they really will sort of take a hatchet to things and cut things right back to bare elements.
If they don't do it like NASCAR and IndyCar, too American, it's fine. I've just got a sneaky suspicion that they may try and go down that sort of route, because obviously they've been successful in the States, because obviously it's the home of motorsport over there. The NASCAR and the IndyCar, IMSA as well is another one. But I just don't want it to be too American and lose the historicness of Formula One, like it has been for the last 50 years or so. So that's the only concern I've got. But we'll see.
Yeah, they've got to respect the history, because that is a massive part to not just long-term fans but new fans as well. There are a lot of new fans that love it. We've got quite a few young fans on Discord, haven't we, Jonty? That actually surprised me with their knowledge of F1 history, and so it's still an important part they've got to hang on to. But I'll let you say what you're going to say now, Jonty, as I interrupt you.
No, yeah, I was kind of echoing that a bit, the worry of it becoming too American, like with the added time for adverts and what have you. I mean, I'm extremely worried we're going to get incidents of and performing before the podium presentation. Here's Beyonce. You know,
God no.
Like you get a half time in the Super Bowl and the show lasts 3/4 of an hour.
Yeah.
It's a concern.
Like, more of those Mexico podium moments. I mean, the only good thing about that was Kimi Räikkönen getting off his face on Champers while he's he's there not interested. That's Yeah.
I mean, the position where they've got the podium and where they go park the cars, that's great.
Brilliant.
Loads of fans can get close. The only other one that rivals that is the one they built at Monza, which is overhanging the track and overhanging the fans. That's great for interaction, but there's a big danger of them taking it too far.
Yeah, absolutely agree. Absolutely agree. What I'm going to do then is I need to nip off. You can guess why. For 2 minutes, I'm going to play you a little bit of an advert, I guess, just to kind of carry on from what Jonty was saying and be a bit of a hypocrite. And then I'll be back in just a couple of minutes for Q&A to start getting those questions in, guys. Hey guys, Sean here and welcome to the F1 Word. So, have my opinions on the Halo changed? Well, aesthetically, no. I still think it's absolutely hideous and it just doesn't look as though it has any place on a Formula 1 car. However, as I've said in this video a couple of times, safety is absolutely paramount. iRacing, you've made the switch over to Twitch. I love saying that, I'm sorry. I will stop saying that.
A video platform, we'll say that. It makes it more easier.
Yeah, it definitely does. You're enjoying it though, aren't you, mate? You can tell in your streaming, you're just having so much more fun with it. It's a rumour that's been flying around for a while now, ever since Sauber announced that they'd be using the Ferrari 2018 engine next season. Everybody's been expecting Alpha to be part of that in some way, and it has now been officially confirmed by all parties. Max Verstappen then, he took his third career win in Mexico with an absolute cruise. A peach of a drive. Dominant. It's the only word. Absolutely dominant. He took the lead in turn 2. He absolutely disappeared. So what they've decided to do is just continue digging and making things worse. Just stop it, FIA. Just stop right where you are and stop being so ridiculous. You do sort of look at them like, back away from the rule book. Just leave it alone. It's a mess. Just do not make it any worse. Charles.
Hello.
Hello. 2 more in general chat. Jonah, do you have a favourite flavour of yoghurt? I'm going to risk chaos now.
Yeah.
Because I'm going to drop 2 more in. We've got Luke and we've got Tom. Very quickly, guys, before I go to Q&A. Favourite flavour of yoghurt?
Can you mix something in the yogurts? For example, drinks.
With what? Okay, then we are back for Q&A. If you pop your questions in the chat, we'll answer as many as we can. We are going to try and keep this a little bit shorter now on a Sunday because obviously we do... what do we do? Oh, yeah, we do midweek interactive. So we're going to try and keep this a bit shorter because I don't think we need 2.5 hours of questions over the course of a week. So, yeah. I don't know. I'm not answering favourite flavour of yoghurt. We've done a whole flipping stream on that one. So, yeah. Thunder Splitter, do you think that any other teams will join F1 soon? I think 2021 is going to be the earliest, I think, is one that we kind of stick with as a time frame, to be honest.
Question is who? I mean, Audi probably won't, and Porsche won't because they're dedicated at the minute to Formula E. They're 2 big names. Ford have been rumoured. They're particularly interested with the new engine regulations. That'll be quite good to see Ford. Chevrolet's another one, potentially, will be interesting. Obviously, I would love to see Honda have their own team again, because I used to love that team, BAR Honda. JB, the big JB, when he was in there.
Yeah, good old days.
I just can't really think of anyone else, really, any big manufacturers that would come. I think with the whole Formula E thing and like where they're going is going to be interesting for some people on there. But obviously, we saw Aston Martin was going to come into F1 with taking over Force India, but now they're tying up with Red Bull now with title sponsor and maybe an engine in 2021 for them. I don't really know really any other teams will come in, but
it's only really Porsche. I mean, Aston Martin talk about it, but I think they're more likely to do a deal with Cosworth and build an engine than a team. But it'd be nice to see a proper independent team come in, like you just said there. BAR, it'd be great to have something like that come in, but I think those days are pretty much gone. We saw in Manor, they can't really survive. But yeah, I think Porsche maybe. Sarthvik says, which livery are you most waiting for? Same one every year, the Red Bull.
McLaren.
For me.
Yeah,
the McLaren. What man about?
I've heard a rumor. It's going to be mainly styled to Alonso's Indy 500 car, livery wise, with a bit of white on it.
Yeah, the traditional. Is it papaya? The traditional papaya.
Yeah, all you got to do really, and this is my advice to get you hinted and get some hype in there, is to watch the McLaren teasers they've been releasing over the last couple of days on Twitter. Then you can kind of get an assumption of what it's going to be like. And I've got to say, I'm pretty hyped up for the McLaren this year. And obviously, we know it's Renault engine. Maybe there could be a bit of like some sort of livery theme with the Renault being on the car. Maybe I don't know, but as long as it's orange, I'm fine. I love a bit of orange.
Yeah, just a little bit better than the 2017 one. I wasn't keen on that one.
More variety is what we want. More like we want a rainbow of cars on the grid. That's what we want to see. Not all blue and all that.
No,
let's have a rainbow. Let's get the what's the dog? The dog paint company. What's it called?
Dulux.
Dulux. let's get a Durex paint cutter thing out and just say, okay, you can have that one. 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 And it will stand out as well who that team is.
Just not like BAR in '99. We don't want anything like that.
Oh mate, that was a brilliant livery. What about?
No, terrible, absolutely terrible.
or what nations put in chat? Or what nations put in the chat? Bring the Jordan 7 Up livery. That was a livery.
Go on, Jonty. Jonty. You can have a minute on that.
The Jordan 191 is my favourite car of all time. Pretty car and best livery.
Oh, one thing to mention as well, Toyota. Toyota livery.
Yeah, I'd like to see Toyota back.
Look, their livery was beautiful. It was one of my favourite liveries of my time watching F1. So that's
I think
20 years now.
I think it's mainly Haas that's letting us down at the moment because it was all grey with the odd hint of white and red. I mean, Force India have helped us along with the pink. And Toro Rosso moved a bit away from the Red Bull by going, quite a bright blue and the silver.
I love that Toro Rosso livery.
So come on, Haas, give us something like bright green or something.
Bright fluorescent green.
Get some patriotic colours on the car. Get a bit of blue, red, white. Get some stars on there. Make it, make it epic. Stand out. For
the 787B livery. That was awesome.
I can't think what that one is. You have to send me that one, John.
That was a beautiful car. I've got to say, I quite like the Porsche livery and the Audi WEC liveries they had on the LMP1s. They were quite nice. Nice design of shapes and all that. Black
Emergency says a gold Haas livery. No. I don't fancy that. Just say thank you to Thundersplitter for your subscription and to I'm going to say it wrong. Arayao or Arayu. Thank you. It's awesome.
Arayu.
Yeah, that'll do. Thank you for thanks for subbing. That's awesome. Just actually on subbing, I probably should say something really. 10k we hit last Sunday. We're about to hit 11,200. So I love you all. You're awesome. Thank you. It really is just nuts at the minute. So we're not even in the season yet either. So God knows. Brabham blue and white. I love the BMW liveries as well.
BMW Williams. 2004, I'd say, was probably the best livery for them.
See, I say 2000, the first one they had. I thought that was had.
The 99 Williams looked pretty good as well. I've got to say, was not too bad. And also, you got to say 97 when Hill won it, or Jack Villeneuve won it. That was a good livery as well.
They were nice liveries, yeah.
Yeah, we just need some brighter colours. Go back to the old Marches and Lolas sponsored by Leighton House. That bright turquoise.
Yes. Here's one for you, Jonty, from Sarthvik again. How far do you think Charles Leclerc will get in, or how do you think he'll fare in 2018? You made a prediction. I have it on my list, so I'm going to let you say it yourself, though. How do you think he'll get on, Jonty?
10 points finishes. That was it, wasn't it?
10. Yeah, it was.
That's a bold statement, I've got to say. That's a bold statement. I I just don't think the Sauber's going to be any decent this year to give him a chance of points. He'll be up there. Don't get me wrong. He'll be quick because we know what he was like in F2. But I just don't think the Sauber, unless they obviously going to get the current Ferrari engines, which is going to help them massively, considering they had old 2016 engines.
Yeah, that's right.
It just depends on how they develop the car personally and the luck they'll have in races. I don't think there would be a lot of luck for them, like the big boys retiring from the races, but I hope he does well. If he can beat his teammate, that's a good starting point to say to Ferrari, look, Kimi's only got 1 year on his contract. Let's sack him off. He's too old now. We'll bring you in. 2019, I'm calling it now. Leclerc will be in that seat if he does really well this year, and I really hope he does because he's a very nice guy. He's great on the track. He's got
amazing
great
racer, amazing.
Great person.
For making predictions, Ocon in the Mercedes for 2019. Just while we're throwing predictions out there.
No, I think if Bottas does well this year, I think he'll be fine for another year. But I think he'll still keep him on a 1 year contract. I think. And just be if he flops or when Hamilton retires, then maybe bring Ocon and him and Bottas potentially. If Hamilton decides to call it quits down the line, I mean, yeah, we'll have to see on that one. But yeah, in terms of Leclerc, you will get some point, not 10 or whatever John T predicted. I think maybe half of that, I would say. I think we've got to be realistic here, chaps. We've got to be realistic.
I shouldn't worry. We've got a video planned for the end of the season, which is the 2018 season review. How wrong was John T? That's what we've got for the end of season. So it's all we're going to have him for that one then. Cooper VH, who do you think will replace older drivers when they retire? So let's go with Alonso, Vettel, Hamilton, Kimi, I guess, are the ones we're thinking there. What do you reckon, John T?
Well, as it's just been said, Leclerc's pretty much going to be lined up for Kimi's seat, no matter what happens. And you just said, I know Bottas isn't one of the old guys, but it's still going to be a top team seat going. As for Alonso, McLaren seem to have staked quite a lot into Norris.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. He didn't do brilliantly at the Race of Champions though, did he? That first day he binned that quite quickly, but
and he got beat by an esports driver as well. And
he did,
Enzo Benito beat him, which was quite hilarious to watch. But
I think a lot of it kind of depends on Daniel Ricciardo and where he goes with Red Bull as well, because he's a driver I could see McLaren quite happily snapping up if he's available.
I doubt it. He's been heavily linked with Ferrari as well.
I think that's where he'll go, probably alongside Vettel, just till Leclerc's ready. I can see that being the case, but
it's just interesting about McLaren. I think obviously when you say Alonso retires, they haven't really got. You can say Van Dorn's got experience, but he's young. They need experience in that team. Maybe Ricciardo will be a good one there, but I doubt that will ever happen. I mean, they could have had Carlos Sainz or Hulkenberg in there. That would have been a great partnership. You got Grosjean as well to throw in the hat as well. Ferrari, you know, he's in Haas. Haas have got links with Ferrari. That would be a good shout for him, but he's a bit older. But Norris has got potential. Obviously, he didn't do well at Race of Champions, but you can't really class the Race of Champions like to affect his F1 where he wants to get in there. He was quicker than Alonso at Daytona in the 24 hours.
He was really impressed.
And he did bin it, I think, when he was in the rain. But we can let him off that because it is an LMP. It's an LMP2 car. They're not that good on the brakes. But I'm just going to
give a quick shout out to Dan Jones, simply because this came up a couple of weeks ago. I mentioned him, and nobody seemed to know what I was talking about. He says, "Bring back the Mastercard Lola team for another crack at the title." I agree. That was a great livery car, awful car, never really got anywhere. And I bought it up a couple of weeks ago, and everyone was sort of like, "What are you on about? There's never been a Lola team." It's like, "That's 1997." But yeah, thank you for that. I don't feel quite so dense now.
So who else is there now who's old? I'm trying to think now. Obviously, we know
Kimi.
We know Leclerc, Ferrari, Perez maybe at Ferrari down the line. There's been rumours.
I think Ferrari will be put off with what's happened with Ocon this year. They like their drivers to get on as best they can, and they wouldn't mind a number 2 for whoever's there. But
I've just realised I have a proclamation. Daniel Kvyat at Ferrari. There you go. There's a driver that you want to bring in. Get the torpedo man in. He's the development driver. Good promotion.
Yeah. If he can build his confidence back up, I think he's got a shot. But I think
he's got
there's a few ahead of him now.
Yeah, but you got to remember as well, Giovinazzi as well. I mean, I feel sorry for the guy, but he should be up there as well. He's not that bad, and he could be one down the line. We've obviously mentioned McLaren, Red Bull. Who have you got there? I can't think of anyone in the Red Bull program that would be. They need another Max Verstappen in that team to have any chance, really. So
yeah, I'd agree with that. Christian Gayton, I'll go with Gayton. He says, "Can we have Bridgestone back?" John, we were talking about this last week. I'd love the tyre war back.
Oh yeah, the tyre war was fantastic. It was another thing to mix it up. Some of the Bridgestone tyres were better than some of the Michelin's, and vice versa. Michelin put money into developing the monsoon tyre, and when we had extreme rain, although it wouldn't make that much of a difference with the safety car now, they were able to drive around, and Bridgestones weren't.
Yeah.
I personally would like to see. I don't know if you remember this. I think Jonty may, but Goodyear. They did tires in the in the 80s and 90s. I really like I watched historic races back, and they were proper really good tires. They were, but I would agree. I would love to see a tire war again. Like I loved the Pirelli Michelin versus Bridgestone rivalries.
I love the Goodyear versus Bridgestone years because you had. I can remember Bridgestone coming into the sport, and they kind of really, really stirred the pot, didn't they? Going back that far, and Ferrari was sort of, no, we're sticking with Goodyear, we know what we like. And then that, interesting enough, when Goodyear then left and Bridgestone took over, Ferrari went the other side and were quite happy to stick with Bridgestone. But I loved all the bickering between teams and tyres, and obviously we don't want things like Indy happening again, 2005, but it certainly throws up a mix, doesn't it? So
it just adds a little bit of spice and excitement and gets everyone talking about it. Like with Twitter now these days, if we had a tyre war, we could literally just go on and on and on about something. Excuse me. And that's what we need. We need more interaction, and we need multiple tyre companies. Basically, have the same degradation, or like something as Pirelli. Have Pirelli versus Michelin versus Bridgestone. That would be an epic battle. But in F1, that would be awesome to see. But I doubt
the more the merrier.
They'll stick with one tyre supplier personally. I mean, Michelin nearly got it recently with the fight with Pirelli for the sole tyre supplier. So maybe there could be, Ross Brawn will be like, let's bring back the rivalry. Pirelli versus Michelin, that would be a great combination.
I think we just need to hope that Pirelli have been quite vicious with how much softer the tyres are this year. So that they were starting to go down the Bridgestone route of softest tyres lasting an entire race. So fingers crossed they have made a big drop in the softness.
I don't want it to get too artificial like it did when we had too much degradation. That's my only concern. Yeah. If they can get the balance right, give us at least 2 stop races, that's what I'm up for. Gibbo, he always throws in a good question. Thank you for the subscription as well. Ben Lim, much appreciated. But Gibbo always seems to throw up a good couple of questions in chat. And he says, in your guys' opinion, which team do you think will win their first Constructors' Championship next? So we're talking back markers. I think if you're looking at back markers, you'd probably have to say Haas have the best shot.
I would say Force India.
Oh, of course. God's sake, Sean. Force
How
India,
could you forget Force? How could you get Force? They've been literally standout performance for the last few years, like 4th place. That is a massive, big thing. They've beaten McLaren. They've beaten Williams over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
That is a great achievement for them. And they're on a budget as well. If they had a big sum of money like to put on the car, they could be contenders, like the top 3, fighting with Red Bull, if they had that sort of money. But obviously, we know these days there's budgets, and they don't have the resources, the money to throw out like Ferrari, Red Bull, and Mercedes do. They would be up there if they had more finance behind them and more push towards it. But I can understand why, and they're doing well even with a good budget, as we can see now currently, and they will still be in that top 4. Maybe there could be maybe get some podiums maybe next year, this season. I would love to see that. They've got 2 good drivers in that lineup at the minute that are solid. Yes, they have the argy-bargy moments as we saw, like in Azerbaijan, Spa, but it happens. These things happen, and they've got a fantastic car, and they've got probably the best livery out of anyone. So obviously that gives them an extra 10 already.
I would probably say they need a more distinctive livery, because apparently I can't bloody remember who they are. So I just forget about them. But yeah, I think Force India, really. I think pretty much Jonty. If you're talking back markers, probably Haas, but yeah.
Well, there's that little hint that something good might come for Sauber in the future. Now they've got this big deal with Alpha, who's ultimately Ferrari.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Are
that
Ferrari
could
going to
really
let
push
them
forward.
beat them to a constructors though?
That's the other problem.
That
But certainly with Force India, you also got to think about last year. It was all the brand new regs. Everyone was still kind of finding their feet. So if Force India have found some clever trick over the winter, they'll be right up there.
That team's basically going to be a version of Red Bull and Toro Rosso, personally.
Yeah, definitely.
That is all it's going to be, personally. It's just going to be a second team, a B team, basically, to Ferrari. And they may have some bits they can share, but obviously Ferrari would like to keep some of their bits secretive so they can't be as quick. But they can be close, but not as
Oh yeah,
close,
they can get closer and help them out a little bit and hold up some other traffic. Scotty McNichols says, any news on a possible Dutch Grand Prix? No actual news as yet. A lot of rumour about Zandvoort. I would love Zandvoort back. I really would.
I mentioned it as well earlier, Assen.
Yeah.
As Herman Tykes been there recently. It's a good track, but again, historically, and I've driven on Zandvoort numerous occasions on iRacing in the F1 cars of like the FW34, the Williams one, and the 2015 McLaren. It is a very deadly track, that one, but it's good fun to drive around. They will have to modernise it a little bit, of course, for safety and whatnot. Assen's is a good flow, but I think it's a bit too bland, I think, for a current F1 car. You'll be seeing like 1 minute lap times around that track, personally. But Zandvoort will be the same as well. I think you'd be looking at about 1 minute 10, I would say, around that track, if they don't make any changes to it. But they need to have a track there because Max Verstappen is just blowing up massively, and not having a home track for him. If they had a home race there for him, just think of the revenue they would get from that and the popularity in that country.
You look at Silverstone with Lewis, for example. You imagine that, and then times that by probably 100, and that's what you're going to get. Verstappen Mania, it'd be brilliant. I'd absolutely love that.
You've got another track as well. Zolder was a good track as well, but of course Gilles Villeneuve died there. Someone mentioned the chat.
I'm a Zandvoort man. I've always been a Zandvoort man.
Yeah.
For me, it's a tough one because I like Zandvoort as a track. I also like Assen because obviously we've seen some epic MotoGP races around there, but obviously we won't mention that because this is an F1 channel. But it's a good layout. It's a good layout for bike racing, but I just don't see it in the next few years as an actual F1 track. I think it's too easy. And Zandvoort, if they have not have a massive redevelopment of the circuit, because they should keep it as it is because it is brilliant, but just tiny little bits to it, just to make it more F1 friendly for these cars of today and beyond.
Yeah. Couple of quick ones then. Let's see what we can do. Martin Colding, here's one for you, Jonty. Will K-Mag ever get a chance at a big team? Maybe Ferrari?
I don't think so. Maybe a couple of years ago they might have looked at him, but he's not really proved himself quite enough with the teams he's been in.
Yeah.
And with the talent that's coming through, as we keep mentioning on various occasions, there's more attractive prospects for the teams to take.
Yeah. Thunder Splitter, do you think Imola will make a return to the F1 calendar soon? I would absolutely love it. I go about every week. I think it is every week just about now. Imola comes up. I love that track. Absolutely love it.
It's a good track.
I just can't see it coming back, sadly.
No. It is lovely to drive, like in the modern, again, plug for iRacing again. The layout they've got with now, it's a good one for overtaking. Like the last corner on towards turn 1 is literally not the same. There's no chicane anymore. It's completely flat all the way around towards turn 1, and that's great. It's good, but it was going to come back for the Italian Grand Prix, of course, with Mons having financial issues from what I've heard when it was announced. But and obviously I love that track, like because I remember the old days of when I first started watching F1. Imola was on there, and it was one of my first races I ever watched was Imola. So I've got that in my mindset, and it's one that I always remember, and I would love to see it back. And it's great to drive on as well. And if you've got a classic F1 game and you've never done it before, or like Assetto Corsa, or like any game where you can mod a track and put it on, highly recommend getting Imola and just get an F1
race
car.
It anywhere.
F1 at Le Mans. Oh dear.
I'm gonna kind of, I don't know, Jonty. Maybe I'm trying not to go down the morbid route again as we do some weeks, but I think does Imola have a little bit of a negative image about it because of obviously that weekend in '94 and varying other incidents? Is that part of the reason why it's not there, or is it just because of safety?
I think that'll definitely be a big part of it. You think about the following and the impacts and had in F1 in general. People are going to have negative feelings towards the track, which is a shame because the track, as you both said, is fantastic track. It always threw up good racing. I've never seen a boring race at Imola.
No.
2005 is a prime example. I think it was that one with Alonso and Schumacher. Went down to the last lap, and
yeah,
it was
then
literally
ITV went to commercials.
Oh,
yeah,
don't
ruined it for
remind
everybody.
me.
Sponsored by Texaco.
It was like, what? It's the last lap. What are you doing?
That was good. I mean, I saw India pop up. That was a great track, wasn't it? That was awesome.
But South Korea was a good track. It just never got the attendance because there was no way of getting there. So
one track I would have loved to see, I would have loved to have seen was Donington.
I was just going to ask that question. Yeah,
it's literally 10 minutes up the road from me. That would have been awesome. The layout looked okay. Could have been a little bit better. And yeah, I would have loved to have seen it, but I think Silverstone's is probably the best UK track out there at the minute. There's no. If you asked anyone in chat or anyone in our community, they would say Silverstone is like the #1 track, and then you can say Brands, and then you've got what else is there? Snetterton's a good track as well. Thruxton, the new they're building a track in Ireland, which looks pretty good. Circle of Wales was one, but obviously I don't think that's going to exist anymore.
No, it's not. It's not even been built yet, has it? It's one of those that they're still talking about and can't get the funding for. But that looks like a great track. I will say that the Circuit of Wales, it does look good, but I can't see it happening.
One track though, I mentioned this in your Discord. Tenerife, get a Tenerife Grand Prix on that layout. That layout was an absolute brilliant layout. That would be great for a 2018 cars round there, but I don't think the chat know a lot of that. So they need to come on your Discord.
It'd be like a brilliant second home race for British drivers, wouldn't it, Tenerife? You might as well go Benidorm as well, you know. Really go crazy with it.
one track, Kyami, I think it is.
Kyalami, yeah, South Africa.
That track was epic in a way, like for classic cars. I think it'll be even great with the current cars, with the fast flowing sections. The last sector for me was probably like when I first started. Like I know it was on the calendar when I first watched it, but watching the classic ones back, that was probably one of the best sectors before Turkey decided to turn up with Turn 8. I mean, that flow of corners was absolutely epic. I've got to say.
That's another track as well. Turkey should come back. Another great track.
Well, I mean, they were talking about bringing it back like last year. I hope they do it. There should be like a petition from like us, Liberty Media. Get your backsides into gear and get Turkey back. Look at the races. Look at the epic races we had there. 2010, the Red Bulls climb with each other. 2000, and I think the first race there was quite good as well with Massa won. There was a good battle between there. Every single race, there's been no complaints about Turkey. Every single race they've done there has been epic. It's been a good race.
There was also a pretty good race there in GP2 in 2006 as well. But I don't want to be accused of being a Lewis Hamilton fanboy again, so I'm going to move on from that one.
Well, there really could be some positive steps towards Turkey coming back, because I've been reading Turkey are putting something like $90 billion into improving infrastructure and generally everything in the country. So that could be a part of it. You know, get them back on the map.
I'd love to see that back. A few saying, including racing, Malaysia needs to not go away. Bring that back. That's a great track. About the only one that Tilke ever got back. Valencia Street Circuit, no. Let's not go near that. Chaz keeps saying Nürburgring, the Grand Prix layout. I'd rather see the German Grand Prix there than Hockenheim, 1,000,000%. Carl Lover says, will Alonso win at Le Mans?
No.
He's in the right team though to do it, but I don't think.
Are you kidding? It's like being a bloody Honda again, you know.
It'd be all right.
The Toyota has been so unreliable at Le Mans. Every last couple of years, like they set the lap record in qualifying last year with Kobayashi, which is great, but they're so unreliable. Yes, you can say Porsche and Audi are not there anymore. It's basically going to give them the win in LMP in prototypes, but.
So if he did win it, then if Porsche and that aren't going to be there, does that make it a bit of a hollow victory in a way? Do you think?
In a way, yes. It'll be nice for Toyota because they've had some rotten. Any other track they go to, they're great. They win races, but at Le Mans, it's always Le Mans. They always have gremlins that literally just stop them from winning a race. Like 2016, they like 2 minutes to go of the race, they were leading, and then they stop on the start finish line. Last year, their engines blow, or their hybrid system wasn't working. That they died. They basically died, and all the other teams had as well. But I would love to see them win because I know Alonso wants to go for the Triple Crown. I think a lot of us would love to see him do that. And
Yeah.
oh, who is it? Who's done the Triple Crown? Was it Was it Clark? I can't remember.
Graham Hill.
Graham Hill, that was it. I'd love to see Graham Hill. We want a modern version of Graham Hill to happen. And
Yeah.
I'd like to see Alonso do it.
I keep trying to get tweets or various messages to McLaren and Alonso saying, well, why don't just try and equal it? Try and beat it. That's what records are for.
Yeah.
Do the Triple Crown and then add Daytona 500 to it. Bathurst 12-hour. You know, keep going. Do them all.
He's hungry for it as well, isn't he? You can tell when he talks about it. He really wants to do it. So that'd be awesome. Just having a look to see a couple more questions because my 15-minute Q&A is so far stretched to 25. We're good at this, Jonty, every week. Just see if there's anything on there. Will Danny Rick beat Max? Asked Southwick. I don't think so. I think this is the year Max really takes that team by the scruff of the neck. But I love Danny Rick. I know. Is he your favourite driver, I think, as well, Ryan, isn't he? So, or
Who's
one
that,
of Danny Ricciardo.
Yep. I always like to do my
driver.
shoeies, when we when he wins a race and do it on videos or whatnot. So yeah, I would love to see Danny Rick beat Verstappen, but I doubt it. I mean, Verstappen is extremely talented for his age at the minute. He's gonna win championships. He's gonna be the next Sebastian Vettel. But as a Ricciardo fan, I would love to see him just beat Verstappen one year. It should be great.
Yeah, I like Danny Rick, but I fear for him. I really do. I worry he's going to end up as a slightly better Nico Hulkenberg. Just one that's always going to be almost there, but not quite there for a championship. And that is such a shame because he's a nice guy. 2, he's a quick driver. And 3, he's brilliant at racing. So what do you reckon, John T? Is this Max Verstappen's year at Red Bull?
I feel like Max is going to beat it. But what I want most out of that team is that they keep the fun camaraderie that they've got. I just really, really hope they keep that atmosphere around themselves and the team so that it's entertaining to watch.
Yeah, I'd agree with that. I'll take a couple more then. I'm just going to have a look and see if I can get to... I want to really... Is water wet? Well, the last I heard, yeah. So, okay, then. I know the answer, but I'm going to come to you anyway, John T. Southwick BS, your favourite European Grand Prix?
Donington 93.
Yeah.
Without a doubt.
For me, Nürburgring 2007.
Oh, this is a tough one. It's 20 years. I've got to remember 20 years of racing for this. There's been a few. I would say for action, for audience integration, Baku last year. I would say.
Yeah.
I would say.
I tell you one I will throw in there for the emotion behind it. 99. Johnny Herbert's winning that, Stuart. You've got the genuinely lovable Johnny Herbert in a car that's in a team that's owned by the lovable Sir Jackie Stewart, who's one of the greatest Brits. All that emotion behind that. The team's only a couple of years old, 3 years old, and that's a great race.
But another one as well, Brazil 2012 was a good one when Vettel got spun and then came back to where he needed to be for championship. That showed a true driver and a lot of skepticism as well because he was saying that he couldn't overtake people. Yes, he was
just going to say that answered a lot of critics, that race did.
I think that proved Sebastian Vettel was a true driver and proved a lot of doubters wrong. And also Canada as well, 2011, Jenson Button as well. I would have that was another one I'd say. For me, for the 3 races, Baku European Grand Prix, whatever you want to call it, last year, Canada 2011 and Brazil 2012.
Scotty just saying Herbert won that due to attrition. He never passed anyone. He didn't, but it was still a great story. So, and it was an epic race, full stop. You know what? Ralph Schumacher led, Giancarlo Fisichella led. They all retired in a couple of laps of each other or had punctures or whatever. And then it's just a crazy race. And then you got the two championship rivals, Mika Hakkinen and I still can't believe I say this, Eddie Irvine, just scrapping for the tail end of the points. It was a great race to watch. Last one then, and we're going to go to Thunder Splitter for this one. Greatest wet weather drive of all time. I'm going to say it straight off so that Jonty can't go there. Donington 1993 by Ayrton Senna. Sorry, Jonty, mate. I've just stolen your thunder.
Yeah, I would agree. Also, modern, you can say Verstappen.
Yeah,
Brazil.
Brazil.
Yeah, that was amazing.
There's only two that I could really think of, and it's Senna and Verstappen. But for me, Senna on the first lap. As Martin Brundle quoted when Top Gear did a segment on it, if you want to know about what is Formula One, Senna's first lap at Donington will always be in my mind. And if anyone asks who was Ayrton Senna, I would just say, just watch this video, because this is the definition of Ayrton Senna.
Yeah,
If I had to pick between the two, it would be Senna, personally.
I think one more to throw in there for great wet weather drive, Spain 96, Michael Schumacher. That was pretty impressive as well.
Yeah.
I could throw Lewis Hamilton as well, Silverstone.
And people saying Jenson Button in Canada and Australia the same year.
Yeah.
Oh, what was the other one that Lewis had in Japan? It wasn't was it Fuji?
Yeah,
another one. That was a
2007?
hell of a wet race. But yeah, it's been so
also,
many.
Winkelhock, Marcus Winkelhock in Nürburgring 2007. That was a great one as well.
He's a cult hero now, isn't he, in Formula One because of that? He only led a few laps, but yeah, great story. One and only Grand Prix, and he led it. Yeah, exactly. It's brilliant. Doesn't matter how you get there, you've got to be there to make your own look.
Also, 2008 Brazil, the end.
Yes.
The famous is that Glock? Is that Glock? That's another one that remembers.
Let's not open that can of worms though.
Nope.
Because it'll get people going.
Jordan.
Spa, yes.
Spa, 98.
Yep.
The whole controversy around that of
so many.
team orders as well.
Yeah.
The first sign of team orders I can remember, I think.
I have to say, I'm going to swear on my own stream against my own rules. It's not really a swear word, but Damon Hill for me and all that came across as a bit of a dick. Quite frankly, he's not, but that's how he came across on Team Radio.
I have to break with tradition and excuse myself because someone's at the door.
That is terrible, John. So we're ending now anyway. So I'm guessing John T's now just disappeared. So thanks for coming on again, Ryan. It was awesome as ever.
Pleasure. Whenever you need me, and if the subscribers and the viewers want me back, I will be delighted to come back because it's good fun. Just an hour to talk about the sport we love is just what we need. So
yeah,
if they want me back, then
we aim for an hour. I don't think we've done one that's an hour, but we will get it right one day. Thank you very much for coming along, mate.
Of course, no problem. I love what you're doing. Channel's growing, which is great to see. Another discussion channel, in our community is what we need. And voices different opinions, of course, and that's what we need as a community. Different opinions from
and upsetting people, but that's part of the fun.
I'm really sorry about that.
That's all right.
That's what we are. We're discussion people. We like to discuss the sport we love.
We say what we think. That's why we like having Ryan on, and I like talking to Ryan because he just says it as it is. So,
yep, straight down the middle. Get a big slap over the head if anyone.
Yeah. Why not? And thank you as well, John T, as ever, for coming on. I'll probably talk to you both in just a minute, and I'll sign off and whatnot. So thank you again.
Thanks for having me.
No worries. Right then, once again, thank you to Ryan and to John T for coming on. If I didn't get to your question, don't worry. If you can make it on Wednesday, we'll be streaming again at 7 p.m. UK time for our fully interactive stream. We aim for 45 minutes. It's usually about an hour and a half, the way it goes, where we just literally answer your questions. Once again, a massive thank you to everyone for the subscribers in this last week. It's just incredible. The channel's absolutely booming. We've got the season coming up, so we're going to have you covered with that as well. I can't wait. 49 days to Australia, and I think we're only, 11 days from the Williams launch. So, Yes, it's on its way. It won't be long. It won't be long. It's on its way. As usual, follow me on social media. Links to all of those are in the description. I will be back on Tuesday, I believe, with a video that is probably going to upset a few people, but, you know, there you go. I've recorded it now, so you're going to get that anyway. And, of course, we'll be streaming live on Wednesday night as ever. But as ever, thank you for watching. I've been Sean. This has been the F1 Word. And until next time, goodbye.